My so-called best friend tried to physically attack me, and even threatened to Unalive me, after admitting he's been secretly in love with my girlfriend of 5 years and couldn't stand seeing us together any longer. My friend, 27-year-old Mark, and I, 26, have been inseparable since our teenage years, specifically since we were 16. Our bond solidified over a shared aspiration for the same professional path. After enduring countless setbacks and rejections over many years, my career has finally gained momentum this past year, while Mark's has not. I've dedicated a significant amount of effort during this period to support and motivate him. We even shared an apartment from ages 20 to 23, and truly, we shared everything. However, approximately 6 months ago, his demeanor towards me shifted. He began making me the target of his jokes, uttering disparaging and humiliating remarks. Typically, I'm a carefree and optimistic individual, so I initially brushed it off, attributing his behavior to a bit of envy and a challenging period in his life. I empathized with his circumstances. I understand how demanding this industry can be, with its numerous rejections, especially when your closest friend suddenly achieves the success you've always yearned for. Then there's Emily, my former girlfriend, 26. I genuinely believed we had a perfect connection during our 5.5 years together. We enjoyed excellent communication and a fulfilling intimate life. She was a constant support throughout those difficult years as I pursued my career ambitions. I also tend to overshare and loved discussing everything with her. We believed we had no secrets and were completely open with each other. I consistently made an effort to keep our relationship exciting and fresh, regular date nights, 1 to 2 times a week, surprising her with thoughtful gifts and trips, and trying new experiences together, such as cooking or dance classes. I cherished sharing these moments with her, embraced her interests, and ensured she knew she was my top priority. I felt a reciprocal sentiment from her. Even as my career began to flourish, I was careful not to diminish the importance of our relationship or my friendships. A healthy work-life balance is essential for my happiness. Last week, we gathered at the home of our friends, Tom, 27, and Katie, 27, a house they had recently acquired. We were relaxing in their backyard, enjoying drinks with Bill, 26, and Jane, 27. Our friendship group has been together for 7 years. As we all drank, Mark quickly became quite intoxicated. Throughout the evening, he continued to make disparaging comments and subtle attacks towards me. After 6 months of enduring this, I finally reached my limit and confronted him. This escalated into an argument, and I ended up stating that I believed his behavior stemmed from jealousy over my recent success, emphasizing that his lack of talent wasn't my responsibility, and recalling all the efforts I'd made to help him secure opportunities as well. He then physically assaulted me. We pushed each other briefly, but he managed to knock me down, kicking me in the ribs a couple of times. He then attempted to stomp on my head. Fortunately, he didn't connect with full force. I felt the sole of his shoe graze my cheek and slide off, but it was impactful enough that my face remained swollen. He tried again, but I shifted, and I watched as his foot landed mere inches from my face. He could have fractured my skull, or, worse, ended my life had he made direct contact. The other men then intervened. I stood up and shouted, asking if he had lost his mind. He appeared to be walking away but then picked up a wooden plank. Tom and Katie were renovating their fence and constructing a shed in the garden. He lunged at me once more, swinging it towards my head. I instinctively ducked and raised my hand, so he struck my elbow quite forcefully. Again, he could have killed me. In a matter of seconds, he nearly struck Jane with his swing as well. At that point, chaos erupted, and Tom and Bill tackled him, assaulting him quite severely, driven by pure rage from what had just transpired. The women managed to separate them from Mark, and they seemed to grasp the gravity of their actions. It was an emotionally tumultuous moment, and we were all in a state of shock. Mark sat up, and Emily sat beside him. There was a significant amount of blood on his face, but he had not lost consciousness. Katie eventually drove Mark to the hospital and returned in the morning. Mark had a broken nose and a minor concussion. She dropped him off at his parents' house, mentioning that Mark didn't truly speak to her, offer any explanation, or even apologize. None of us really slept that night, and honestly, after that, things are a bit hazy for me. Likely a combination of alcohol, shock, adrenaline, and what felt like the worst night of my life. But it only got worse. You might have noticed I haven't mentioned Emily for a while. As we were sitting around, Tom uttered something to the effect of Mark deserving a worse outcome than a broken nose for attempting to kill me twice and almost harming Jane. Then Emily, who had been silent, suddenly retorted, defending Mark by saying he didn't deserve any of this and that he was merely going through a difficult period. Tom and Emily nearly erupted into a shouting match before Emily stormed off. I followed her, assuming we were all in shock and sleep-deprived, intending to offer comfort. I found her in the guest room, weeping. I told her I understood we were both in shock, and perhaps we should try to get some rest. She didn't even look at me, and suddenly, a realization dawned. Mark and Emily had been sitting close to each other the previous evening, not for the first time. When Mark was shouting at me, Emily was by his side, gently tugging his arm, pleading with him to go for a walk and compose himself, directing her concern towards Mark, not me. After Mark kicked me, stomped on me, and swung a plank at me, her focus remained on soothing him while I lay there in pain. She didn't check on me. When the men were assaulting Mark, she was screaming hysterically, attempting to pull them away from him. I don't even recall her once asking if I was all right throughout the entire night. So, I asked her, "Are you having an affair with Mark?" She immediately began crying uncontrollably, repeating that she never intended for things to go so far. I had my answer, and I lost all composure, starting to yell at her, demanding to know what was happening and how she could do this. The others entered the room, and the men led me to another room, attempting to calm me down. Jane and Katie ended up driving Emily to her parents' house, and Jane stayed with her, as apparently, they were very concerned about her throughout the car ride. She cried so much she couldn't speak. When they arrived at her parents', Jane and Emily's father had to help her up the stairs and into bed, as she could barely stand, still in a state of hysteria. The only thing she managed to utter, or scream according to them, was that she had ruined everything. So Jane remained there, as her parents were terribly worried and had never witnessed her in such a state. Jane and Katie recounted what had occurred with Mark and me, and it appeared to originate from Mark and Emily's affair. 5 days then passed. I was experiencing immense physical and emotional anguish, filled with anger and bewilderment. My elbow had a fracture, I had a couple of bruised ribs, and the right side of my face was swollen. That night replayed endlessly in my mind. I sent Emily a few messages seeking an explanation, but she didn't respond. Then, this morning, I received a call from my former mother-in-law, a remarkable person who has always shown me great kindness and support throughout these past years. She was very apologetic for her daughter's actions and incredibly understanding. She then conveyed that Emily wished to see me and talk, and asked if I would be willing to visit, to which I agreed. I arrived, and they stated they would wait in their car to provide us with privacy, but given Emily's distressed state, they didn't want to leave the premises. I walked in, and upon seeing Emily, a whirlwind of emotions swept over me. Anger and bitterness, followed by a surge of pity and an overwhelming desire to embrace her. She looked utterly distraught, like someone suffering a mental breakdown, as if she hadn't eaten, showered, or slept since that dreadful night. I felt so terrible witnessing her in that condition and had to physically restrain myself from rushing to her side and holding her. So, I simply sat down facing her. She said I could ask her anything, and she would be completely truthful, repeatedly expressing how truly sorry she was, and that she had ruined everyone's life. I won't delve into too many specifics, as this is already quite lengthy, but essentially, a year ago, Mark confessed his affections for Emily and had been relentlessly pursuing her ever since. She claimed she made it unequivocally clear that his feelings were not reciprocated. I inquired why she didn't come to me. She stated she didn't want to jeopardize our friendship and wanted to resolve the situation herself. Then, in recent months, he became more aggressive, urging her to leave me for him. I asked if anything had transpired between them. She admitted they had kissed twice, both times initiated by Mark, but she had stopped it. She also mentioned they had once cuddled during a movie, that Mark attempted to initiate intimacy, and then she left, setting clear boundaries. I questioned why she continued to meet him alone if he was constantly trying to kiss her and lead her into bed. She replied that he always promised he wouldn't repeat it. I asked why she didn't sever all contact, why she kept replying to his direct messages, kept meeting him, giving him false hope, and leading him on, if she enjoyed his attention. Then she uttered the most peculiar thing, that she felt compassion for him, felt sorry for him, felt a protective instinct towards him, as if she were his older sister. What on earth? And that she needed to help him overcome his feelings for her. She even set him up on a date with a friend, which he sabotaged by acting like an absolute jerk towards the girl. I asked her if she was being foolish, if she was truly believing what she was saying. She had done nothing but keep his hope and infatuation for her alive by continuously dedicating her time to him. She began crying and adamantly reiterated her claim of having a sister-brother relationship with him, wanting to mend everything, and that he was merely going through a difficult time and she wanted to help him get back on his feet. However, he grew increasingly persistent and started speaking negatively about me, saying I didn't deserve her. She expressed profound regret for everything, admitting she had been utterly naive and had handled the entire situation in the worst possible way, but that she had acted with good intentions, not realizing she was only making things worse. Then I asked her if she had maintained any contact with him since that night. She took an awkward pause before bursting into tears and admitting yes. That absolutely shattered me, utterly destroyed me. This man had been trying to get with her for over a year, tried to kill me, and I waited 5 days for her to respond to me, only for her mother to call me on her behalf, and all the while, she was texting him. I couldn't respond. I felt like inflicting pain upon her, not physically, but emotionally. So, I decided to simply stand up and leave. She pleaded with me, offering to show me the messages, claiming she only checked if he was all right, and that the conversation then shifted to her telling him it was over and to cease contacting her. But for me, she had made her choice. I had endured the worst pain of my life these past 5 days because of them, and she still chose to continue communicating with him while I was left to cope alone. I walked out with her following me, pleading, and I'm not proud of this, but her mother and father emerged from their car and inquired if everything was all right. I simply lost it. I yelled that their abominable daughter had ruined my life, how she could choose the man who tried to stomp on my face over me. I was so enraged I couldn't even drive, so I just started walking away. I don't know how long I walked, but my former father-in-law pulled up beside me in his car, told me to get in, which I did, expecting him to shout at me or reprimand me. But bless his kind heart, he just drove me home. We didn't exchange a word the entire way, but when he stopped outside my place, he placed his hand on my shoulder. I couldn't even bring myself to look him in the face after what I had said to them. Emily did text me screenshots of their messages, which seemed to substantiate her claim that she only checked if he was okay, and then told him she couldn't keep him in her life, and that she would never forgive him for assaulting me. She also sent more screenshots of their previous conversations, mostly showing her telling him to stop, that she didn't have feelings for him, and rejecting his advances. However, since they had been communicating for over a year, I suspect she could have selectively chosen portions of the conversations that favored her and omitted other parts of the texts. I have not replied yet, and I don't think I ever will. I intend to block her, but for some reason, I just can't bring myself to do it yet. Now I am here, just pouring all of this out. I feel so utterly betrayed, angry, and terrible. I want to hurt Emily and Mark so badly, not in a violent way, but emotionally, to make them experience the pain I am enduring. I recognize that these are not healthy feelings or actions. So, I hope that simply articulating this, even if no one else reads it, will help me begin to process what on earth has transpired, how my life transitioned from feeling perfect to feeling as though I will never experience happiness again. I feel as if this anguish will never dissipate. How on earth can someone recover from something like this? I feel as though I have lost everything, the people I once loved with all my heart. For now, I feel nothing but animosity. I know Emily stated she didn't engage in infidelity or sexual acts, which I doubt, because I am not naive. Even if they didn't have sex, she still betrayed me on so many levels, as did Mark. I don't believe I will ever forgive them. I don't feel I will ever reach a point where I would even consider attempting to. So, to anyone who has ever experienced such a profound betrayal from partners or friends, or both, what is my next step? What can I do to begin the process of ceasing to dwell on this, and simply trying to live my life again? Update. I haven't felt the need to provide an update until now because I'm seeking advice again, or perhaps just reassurance on what to do, as many have requested an update on the entire situation. I will try, but going into too many details would make this far too lengthy. The situation I need advice on pertains to the concluding paragraphs. I apologize again for the length. I didn't intend for it to be so long, but once I started writing, I felt compelled to express everything on my mind. Regarding Mark, everyone urged me to file charges. I'm unsure. Perhaps many of you are Americans with excessive faith in a justice system or have watched too many legal dramas on television. It simply doesn't operate that way, at least not in my country. I consulted 2 lawyers, and the outcome was that while I could press charges, imprisonment for him is highly improbable. The most likely scenario is that he would have to cover the trial costs and pay me a settlement. This could be a substantial sum or a minor one, as I wasn't severely injured and sustained no lasting damage. My friends could attest to the severity of his assault, but the judge would most likely rule based on the extent of the harm inflicted. He might receive probation, but not a jail sentence. So yes, I could potentially ruin him financially, but then he could press charges against Tom and Bill, and there's a greater likelihood they would face worse consequences from that case than Mark would from mine, as they did fracture his nose and cause a concussion. With a competent lawyer, he could portray it as having enduring physical effects. This could drag on for months, even years, and I simply want it to be over. His reputation has suffered. He has lost some friends, and some have declared their neutrality. His older brother informed me that he and their parents have expressed their disappointment in him, but are not disowning him. However, his younger sister took it particularly hard. She used to playfully remark that she considered me her older brother, at Mark's expense, light-hearted jokes, not malicious ones. She also admired Emily greatly, so she was deeply affected and has refused to communicate with Mark. He did send me a lengthy letter of apology, but it never once mentioned Emily, only his behavior towards me and the assault. It was earnest, but not deeply heartfelt. He admitted to many things, but attributed others to his mental well-being. I have not responded and will not. As for Jane and Katie, some of you, after I commented that they had told me Mark might have been abusive towards Emily, suggested they might know more than they let on or were siding with her. So I acted somewhat naive, expressing disbelief that I hadn't noticed the signs if they had. And yes, they were aware of Mark kissing Emily, but they claimed they didn't know the full extent of it. Only that Mark and Emily were spending time together, and Emily had told them he kissed her, but she had dealt with the issue. I didn't entirely believe that was all they knew, as Jane became very defensive when I questioned her further about this. That had a ripple effect, as Tom became angry with her for keeping it a secret and for what else she might be concealing from him. In his mind, if she could keep a secret like that, what else could she keep secret? So it has caused some strain in their relationship. I'm staying out of it, but advised Tom not to direct his anger at her on my behalf. Katie did come to my home and asked to speak. She said she genuinely didn't know. She just happened upon the conversation about the kissing, and Jane and Emily later downplayed it. When I questioned Jane, she claimed Emily had resolved it and swore she believed Emily had informed me and had no other knowledge of what was occurring. I do believe her. She seemed very sincere and remorseful, unlike Jane. I don't harbor hatred or resentment towards Jane, but I am disappointed and frustrated. So I've maintained low contact or no contact with her these past few weeks, as I simply feel no desire to be around her, which has subtly impacted my friendship with Tom, as I've been spending time with other people instead. Now, regarding Emily, where to begin? Many of you suggested going no contact, but I know myself. It would have driven me insane not being able to express everything and find some sort of resolution to what on earth happened. And one person messaged me, saying that he was raised to confront his problems in person, and that resonated more with me than going no contact, though I planned to do that after meeting her again. I also had to apologize to her parents and retrieve my car, as it was still at their place. So, 4 days after that incident, I telephoned them, inquired if I could visit, talk to them, and if they would permit me to speak with Emily again. They were actually relieved. Part of me suspects they thought I was planning to forgive her or something. So I went there. We spoke. I apologized. They stated they were disappointed and shocked by me shouting those hurtful things, but understood that I was experiencing a multitude of emotions and was in a difficult place. Then we embraced. They then went outside again, and I entered the living room where Emily awaited me. She approached me with the saddest expression I have ever witnessed and asked for a hug, but I declined and asked her to sit down to talk. I asked her to recount everything again and inquired if Mark had been abusive in any way, as Jane and Katie had implied. She provided me with the same account as last time, but with a few additions. She said she didn't fully grasp it at the time. She simply felt that resolving this situation was her responsibility, but the reason she couldn't do it or be truthful was Mark. He threatened her by saying he would tell me himself that they had kissed, that they were in love, that she was cheating on me. When she tried to cut off communication with him, he made these threats, saying she would ruin our relationship and the friendship between me and Mark, that I would believe him and not her. So she felt trapped into dealing with this on her own. I asked if he had been physically abusive. She hesitated somewhat and said, not really, but on 2 occasions, he did hurt her, not severely, but to the point of causing pain. One time, at an event we were all attending together, he got her alone and asked her if she truly didn't love him. She said no and to not do this there, and tried to walk away, but he grabbed her wrists and wouldn't let go, dragging her closer to him, hurting her wrists. I recall that night, and I remember about halfway through, Emily became quiet and preoccupied but told me she was just tired. The second time was similar, but they were alone, and he grabbed her bicep and squeezed, and she sustained bruises, but I don't remember any bruises on her. I would have noticed and inquired about them. Perhaps she concealed them. I also asked if it truly wasn't sexual, given that his intentions were obvious, and why she kept putting herself in that situation. She simply said she didn't know, that she was being foolish, but they never had sex. I also asked why he had such immense power over her, that for a year, she couldn't find the courage to simply tell me, why she believed I would trust his words over hers. Again, she said she didn't know, that she just kept making errors. I asked why she ignored me after Mark attacked me, but not him. She just started crying and kept repeating that she didn't know why, that she just thought our relationship was stronger than that, and we would recover, and she was worried about what Mark would do. I said that was the reason that hurt me the most. She was too busy worrying about him and not about me. That to me, she chose him. She said she didn't choose him, but I remained firm that it felt like she had. Then I explained how deeply she and they had wounded me, that all trust was gone, and we were finished, and I would maintain no contact with them. She asked if there was a possibility in the future that we could be a part of each other's lives, and I firmly said no. However, it was consuming me, as there were so many aspects of her story I doubted. So, I reached out to Sarah, Emily's best friend, 27, and confessed that I was utterly distraught and felt like no one around me was being truthful, begging her to simply be honest. To my surprise, she responded. It appears she knew a lot, but Emily had kept her out of the loop on many things. She knew about Mark and said she told Emily to stop communicating with him and to inform me about his behavior. She knew about them kissing and that Emily regretted it and was the one who prevented it from progressing further. She told me, to begin with, that Emily felt validated. She used to appreciate the dynamic in our relationship where I relied on her support when my career was struggling and riddled with rejections. Not that I was constantly weeping on her shoulder or depending on her financially, but on many occasions, she was my support system, the one who took it upon herself to uplift me, embrace me, comfort me, motivate me, make me believe in myself, and persevere. When my career took off, she felt that dynamic was missing. But then Mark found himself in the position I had been in, and she could offer him her support and experience that validation once more. I was simply astonished. Sarah said she was too when Emily told her. I asked if she felt validated by Mark's sexual interest. Sarah said Emily never really discussed that, but as a woman herself and having known Emily for 20 years, she suspected that was also a factor. Then I asked, as I had been concerned I might have been deluding myself about being a good boyfriend, if she ever spoke ill of me, perhaps if I had done something to drive her into Mark's arms. Sarah said not really, that Emily always sounded deeply in love and often spoke about how happy she was, how I made her feel special, to the point where Sarah was almost envious on a few occasions. Emily did refer to me as overbearing and clingy, and that I would sometimes withdraw and be self-centered, but never anything worse than that. Since then, I kind of feel Sarah has been subtly flirting with me. She texts me every day, at first just asking about my day or how I was feeling, then sending memes, then memes that are somewhat suggestive. But I have absolutely no interest in anything with her, so I suppose I will have to put a stop to that. I don't want her to think I'm leading her on. So, I'm just trying to come to terms with all of this, trying to move forward. Then, about 8 or 9 days ago, I received a message from Emily. I had blocked her on all applications and social media platforms we typically used for communication, but rarely on our phone numbers, so it genuinely slipped my mind, or perhaps subconsciously I didn't block it. It simply read, "How have you been?" followed by her saying she had smiled and laughed again for the first time because of me, and a photo of me on her television, and how proud she is of me, and how she looks forward to seeing my career progress. I work in the entertainment industry. My significant break early last year was a behind-the-scenes role, which then led to me appearing in front of the camera. I am by no means famous, and it's just a small show, although it's gaining audience and popularity since we started, not on the main channel or anything. I made the error of responding, and we chatted for 2 days, not about our relationship, but about some political matters in the country. I maintained my distance. If she texted, I simply waited until I was in the mood to respond or finished what I was doing first. Then she asked if I could find it in my heart to allow her back into my life, even in a small way, in the future. I said I needed more time, but that it was unlikely. I told her I couldn't continue doing this for my mental well-being, said goodbye, and blocked her again. I thought this was finally over. But then last Friday night, around midnight, I heard a knock at my door, and lo and behold, there stood Emily, drenched from the rain, like something out of a film. I demanded to know what on earth she was doing there. She claimed she had been out drinking and wanted to see me, but got cold feet as soon as she exited the taxi and stood there for 10 minutes. However, it was too cold to wait for another taxi now. So, I let her in, provided her with some old sweatpants, a t-shirt, and a hoodie of mine, and gave her a bag to put her wet clothes in. The story is that her friends pressured her into a girls' night out, but she didn't feel ready yet, but went anyway. They were drinking, and she ordered her favorite cocktail from when we were together. When we were out separately, we used to have this habit where we would message each other all night with amusing things that happened, inside jokes about situations, or just send pictures of our drinks. The more elaborate, the better. We were that annoying couple, yes, always on our phones talking when separated. And she instinctively reached for her phone to send me a picture, but then realized she could never do that again and was overcome by a wave of sadness. She drank a bit more, and then after telling her friends she didn't want to meet or talk to men, they invited some guys over, told one of them Emily was single, and he was flirting and attempting to gain her attention, and her friends kept creating situations, leaving them alone together, and she had had enough. She also told me that the guy was uninteresting, unengaging, and pathetic and unattractive. Emily rarely speaks about people like this, which brings me to this point. I know sober Emily, tipsy drunk Emily, and very drunk Emily. She appeared to be in the tipsy drunk state, but usually she is very giggly and bubbly. Now she was completely distant and cold, never making eye contact, unlike our last encounter where she looked at me with such sorrow and regret. She even almost spoke in a monotone. Never have I seen this Emily. It was as if she were a different person. I was exhausted and utterly bewildered. My mind went somewhat blank. Then she just sat there, not uttering a word. I went on the taxi application and ordered her another taxi, but after 15 minutes, the app indicated it was still searching for a taxi. So I thought, forget this, and offered to drive her home, as I didn't think her staying over was a good idea and suspected that was her objective, and I was calling her bluff. But she simply gathered her belongings and went to my car without any protest or saying anything at all. In the car, the atmosphere remained so strange. She asked to choose the music. I agreed. She asked to hold my hand while we drove, for one last time. Foolishly, I said yes. Then she just sat there and stared out the window, never looking at me. This demeanor somewhat disarmed me. My mind was blank, but in a feeble attempt to lighten the mood, I joked about driving her back to her friends and perhaps missing her pathetic admirer who was still there. She merely shrugged and said she was finished with men forever. All they did was betray her trust, manipulate her emotions and good intentions, and place her in no-win situations. I'm unsure if that was a jab at me, Mark, or both. I asked her why she said that, and she shrugged again and said seriously. She also told me Mark had sent her a letter asking her to move with him to another country, but she had discarded it. Then we simply drove in silence. When we approached her parents' home, I felt her squeeze my hand as if she didn't want to let go. When I stopped the car, she said nothing, just exited without even looking at me and went inside. When I returned home, of course, I discovered her underwear in my bathroom, but in a spot beside the laundry basket where clothes often fall into. My common sense tells me, of course, she left them intentionally. She knows that's where clothes sometimes end up, but they do fall there. So, of course, another thing for me to overthink and doubt. And now I have her underwear, and she has my clothes, creating a reason to see each other again. Anyway, I was just so bewildered and a little concerned for Emily in this state. I've even been contemplating if she was under the influence of drugs that night. She was that unlike herself. I'm even debating whether I should ask Sarah about it, but I shouldn't put her in that position and pull a Mark on her. I'm also so naive that I unblocked Emily on everything because I genuinely thought she would reach out with an apology for showing up intoxicated at my place. The old Emily would have. I also noticed she significantly altered her Instagram. She removed her bio, deleted almost every picture she had. She had this charming and eccentric feed. She has 2 old pictures of herself, deleted all pictures with other people, and pictures of me, except one of us together from a holiday 2 years ago that we both declared as the most enjoyable time in our lives. I felt like I was making small progress, but now I can't stop thinking about her again. But the truth is that I genuinely miss Emily so much. She truly is a unique individual. I have always realized how fortunate I have been to have her in my life. And as much as I've despised and resented her this past month, seeing her on Friday and remembering her tears at her parents, I hate seeing her like this. It used to make me feel satisfied or content thinking about her suffering from her choices and ruining her life with Mark. I felt like she deserved it for inflicting so much pain upon me. Now I feel some resentment, but I worry and am afraid for her more now. I admit, when she squeezed my hand in the car, I felt a flutter, like butterflies in my stomach, thinking about it and our time together. Then I feel concerned. I don't want her to self-destruct or feel bad or guilty for the rest of her life. We are only human. We make mistakes. I am inclined to believe that Mark was abusive, which actually makes me want to press charges to punish him for what he did to Emily, and that she felt trapped in dealing with this herself because of his threats and fear of losing everything. But then again, she did console him and not me when things came to a head. I keep going in circles, and I feel her visit on Friday was a little manipulative, her showing up soaking wet, leaving her underwear, acting so strangely. But then for a few minutes, I feel like not caring about any of that, only having her in my life as a partner again. So I'm thinking in circles, go no contact and try to be strong, reach out to her, have an honest, all on the table conversation. Maybe try to work on things and see if we can move forward, or simply be the more magnanimous person and meet her and end things in a way that somehow relieves her of her guilt, so she won't beat herself up about this or regret her entire life, even if it means me lying or downplaying something. So at least I won't have to worry about her. As you can see, fellow readers, I am so utterly confused and lost right now, and hoping, like last time, someone will come along with advice that will help me see the right path forward.